Good day, everyone. Today we're going to learn input hypothesis. What is input hypothesis? The input hypothesis explains how we learn languages. We have first the acquisition versus learning. When we say acquisition, it's like picking up a language naturally. For example, a child learning their first language by listening to their parents. Learning, in simply means, is studying grammar rules. Example, memorizing verb conjugation in a Spanish class. Now let's move to the I plus 1. I plus 1, to improve, you need to understand language that's a bit beyond your current level. For example, if you understand basic English, watching a movie with slightly more complex sentence can help you improve. Next, we have understanding is key. When we say understanding is key, focus on understanding the meaning first, not the grammar. For example, when reading a book in a new language, try to understand the story first. Don't worry about every single word. Next, automatic improvement. When we say automatic improvement, if you understand the input, you will automatically pick up new language skills. For examples, listening to a podcast in English. If you understand most of it, you'll naturally improve your vocabulary and grammar. And the last one we have speaking emerge. When we say speaking emerge, speaking fluency comes naturally as you understand more. For example, after listening to English conversations for a while, you'll find it easier to speak English yourself. But speaking in English, like you're going to speak fluently, you need to understand deeper what is the meaning of that language. And that's for my topic. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something in my discussion.
Good day, teacher and everyone. My name is Winko Joyce Malina, and I will discuss about the evidence supporting the hypothesis. First, language acquisition in children. So the input hypothesis is very consistent with what is known about caretaker speech. So the modification that parents and others make when talking to young children. So the most interesting and perhaps the most important characteristic of caretaker speech for us is that is, it's not a deliberate attempt to teach language. So rather, as Clark 1997 point out that caretaker speech is modified in order to aid comprehension. So caretakers talk simpler in an effort to make themselves understood by children. So for instance, adult speech. We should probably allocate some time tomorrow to tidy up your room, while in caretaker speech, clean room tomorrow. So here, the caretaker speech simplifies both vocabulary and sentence structure to ensure the child understands the basic idea of cleaning the room the next day. So in caretaker speech, it make the word or the sentence simpler for the child to understand it easily. Stunning in caretaker speech refers to the characteristic where the language used by caregivers is simplified but not precisely tailored to a child's exact linguistic level. So instead of carefully adjusting the complexity to match the child's current competence or the fine-tuning, caretakers provide language input that is generally simpler than adult speech but includes a range of linguistic structures. So some of the child has already mastered some that are just beyond their current level and others that are more advanced. Key aspect of rough tuning. First, we have syntactic simplicity. So in syntactic simplicity, a caretaker speech is grammatically simpler than adult speech, like making it easier for children to process. Second, we have do not finely tune. So caretakers do not meticulously adjust their language to match the child's exact linguistic level. Third, we have the child's development or progression with child's development. As the child linguistic competence grows, caretaker speech tends to become more complex. So Fourth, we have the inclusion of varying linguistic structures. So caretakers provide language input that includes structures the child has already acquired, structures slightly beyond their current level, and more advanced structure. And the last or the fifth, we have the no grammatically based syllabus. So caretakers do not follow a structured step-by-step curriculum in their speech. It is just their goal is to make the children understand what are they talking about. According to Cross 1977 and Newport Glaitman and Glaitman 1977, so the research indicates that the correlations between input complexity and a child's linguistic maturity are positive but not very large. So this suggests that caretakers are not precisely targeting their language input to the child's exact current linguistic level. Caretakers provide a range of linguistic structures, including those the child has already acquired. So, like those slightly beyond their level and more advanced structure. So, this approach ensures that the child is exposed to a variety of language input, facilitating their language development without rigidly adhering to a specific grammatical syllabus. Example: a caretaker might say, "Look at the doggy running fast," even if the child only understands doggy and run. So the sentence includes familiar words, doggy, a slightly more advanced concept, running, and a descriptor, fast, providing a mix of linguistic elements for the child to process. And now, principle in caretaker speech. So caretakers use the here and now principle to focus on the child's immediate environment, like see the ball or what are you playing with? So this approach anchors language input to the present, leveraging shared context and tangible objects or activities to enhance comprehension and engagement. So abstract or future-oriented topics like what will we do tomorrow are minimized. Align with Krashen's input hypothesis, emphasizing comprehensible input slightly beyond the child's current ability. Comprehension precedes grammar and acquisition, like Per McNamara 1972 and roughly tuned speech, natural context-rich, input optimized learning without rigidly targeting specific structures. We have the advantages of roughly tuned input. So first is the natural coverage. So it addresses the I+1 for multiple children simultaneously, avoiding the pitfalls of finely tuned input, like missing a child's specific needs. Second is the built-in review. Repeated exposure to structures ensures reinforcement even if a child misses a lesson. Third, we have the reduced burden. So reduced burden, caretakers communicate spontaneously without over-engineering speech for grammar instruction. Language acquisition or the SLA, so the principle extends to SLA or the second language acquisition where modified input, simplified language, contextual cues helps learner grasp new language like caretaker speech. This approach prioritizes comprehension and contextual relevance over explicit grammar drills. Here and now principle and roughly tuned input are crucial elements of effective caretaker speech because the here and now principle ensures that language input is relevant and comprehensible, while rough tuning provides a broad range of linguistic structures that support language development without the need for precise individualized targeting. So this approach aligns with the input hypothesis and promotes spontaneous natural communication, benefiting both first and second language learners.
Good day everyone, I am Roger Jr. Calago Custodio and welcome to our class discussion. Today, we will talk about how teachers and native speakers adjust their language to help second language learners understand better. Our topic focuses on foreign talk, teacher talk, and Krashen input hypothesis, including the arguments against the grammatical syllabus, the silent period, and the L1 influence. These ideas come directly from the second language acquisition theory, and I will explain them using real life examples to make everything clearer. Now, let's begin with the foreign talk and teacher talk. Foreign talk and teacher talk are simplified versions of language. They are not just about the the here and now, but they help learners understand by using easier vocabulary, speaking slowly, simplifying grammar, and using visuals or gestures. These help learners make sense of their input using their background knowledge. For example, Filipino giving direction to a tourist. The tourist, where jeepney going? Sir, jeepney there, straight, then right. This is foreign talk, simple, slow, and clear. Next example is the teacher talk. Teacher, class, make a line, one behind the other. Instead of complex instructions, teacher talk in a simple and supported by actions or pictures. Now let's proceed to the question input hypothesis, the I plus 1. Question says learners acquire language when they receive comprehensible input, meaning they understand the message. The language is just slightly above their level, the I plus 1. Simplified teacher talk and foreigner talk help make input more comprehensible. For example, watching K-dramas. You understand a scene first when slowly pick up words like opa, anyong, and gomawu. You're not studying grammar, but you're learning through input. Yes, you learn through input. Now let's proceed to the problems with the grammatical syllabus. Your topic listed four arguments and they all included here. First, your topic listed four arguments and they all included here. First, the students are not at the same stage. One grammar structure would be I plus 1 for everyone. For example, teachers teach us past tense. Some students already know it. Some still struggle with the basic present tense. Second, the grammar is taught only once. If a student is absent or not ready, they may learn it until next year. For example, a student misses the lesson on adjectives. Without repeated lateral input, the topic disappears until review time. Third, we cannot assume the order of acquisition. A grammar syllabus assumes learners to follow one sequence, but real acquisition doesn't work like that. Fourth is the grammar focus limits real life communication. If goal is to practice a specific structure, teachers cannot freely discuss interesting topics. For example, teachers want students to talk about their weekend, but only allows responses in the future tense, making it unnatural. Now let's proceed to the silent period. Many children go through a silent period when learning a second language. They listen first before speaking. For example, Filipino child abroad. A Filipino child in Canada listens to English for months before speaking simple phrases like, my turn, I want milk. This supports the input hypothesis. Speaking emerges after enough listening. Now, let's proceed to the L1 influence using first language rules. Newmark explains that when students are forced to speak early before they have enough input, they will use L1 rules to fill in the gaps. This is not interference. It simple means that student has not yet acquired the L2 rule. For example, Tagalog and English. Filipino learners want to say, wala akong ballpen. She says, no have ballpen or I have no ballpen. She is showing Tagalog structure because she has not yet fully acquired the English rule. Next example is Korean and English. Korean learner says, "Me go to store now." They are using their L1 structure to communicate without full L2 knowledge. To summarize, foreign talk and teacher talk simplify input so learners understand better. Input hypothesis says learners acquire language through meaningful, comprehensible input, not memorized grammar. And grammatical syllabus has limitations because learners have different levels. Topics are taught once. Real communication becomes limited and the natural order cannot be controlled. Next is a silent period. Shows that learners need time to listen before speaking. And the last is the L1. Influence happens when learners are asked to speak before enough input has been acquired. In short, the best way to acquire a language is through rich, meaningful input supported by natural communication, not pressure to speak early. Thank you for watching. Once again, I am Roger JRC Custodio. I hope this lesson helped you understand second language acquisition more deeply. Now let's welcome the next discussant.
A pleasant day, class! I am Ladasma Irish Jean R. I am your next discussant for today. Today, we're diving into how our first language or our L1 impacts our journey in learning a second language or our L2, and why something called comprehensible input is so crucial or important. Learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain. You are striving to communicate, but sometimes you stumble relying on what you already know. The advantages and disadvantages of using our first language rules in second language performance, arguing that while our L1 rules might aid initial production, they can lead to errors and may not facilitate through our L2 acquisition. So, the author suggests that real acquisition stems from comprehensible input, not just the rule application. When we start learning a second language, it's natural to lean on our first language. Think of it as a crutch. It can help us get started, allowing us to produce language early on. For instance, word order. For instance, if you are a native Tagalog speaker learning English, you might initially use the Tagalog word. Or in English sentences, instead of saying the book is read, you might say read the book is, because Tagalog often places the adjective before the noun. This reliance on our L-win rules can be helpful for initial fluency, but it has drawbacks. L1 rules are not always the same as L2 rules, leading to errors. For instance, false friends. Consider embarazada word in Spanish. It looks like embarrass in English, but it actually means pregnant. Using the English meaning when speaking Spanish could lead to some awkward situations. So, these errors require constant vigilance and correction, but according to language acquisition theory, this kind of conscious correction does not lead to lasting change. Real acquisition comes from something else entirely. That something is comprehensible input. This means understanding the language you are exposed to. It's not just hearing the language, It's understanding the meaning. For instance, think about watching a movie in a foreign language with subtitles. You are not just hearing the words, you are connecting them to meaning through the visuals and the subtitles. Comprehensible input helps us build an internal understanding of the L2 rules, allowing us to create new language. Traditional language learning methods like audiolingual drills and grammar translation often focus on memorization and rule application. Studies have shown that these methods do not always lead to significant gains in language acquisition. Why? Because they often lack comprehensible input. The students might be able to recite grammar rules, but they struggle to understand and to comprehend and use the language in real world situations or scenarios. Newer methods like total physical response or TPR and the natural approach prioritize comprehensible input. For instance, for total physical response, in TPR, students respond to commands like stand up, touch your nose, or walk to the door. The focus is on understanding the meaning through actions, not on grammar rules. Fourth, the natural approach. For instance, for natural approach is emphasizes creating a low anxiety environment where students are exposed to comprehensible input and encouraged to speak when they feel ready. So, these methods have shown promising results because they focus on understanding before production. This brings us to an important point. The classroom can be an excellent place for language acquisition, especially for beginners. Outside the classroom setting, beginners often struggle to find comprehensible input. Native speakers might speak too fast or use vocabulary that's too advanced. In classroom setting, teachers can tailor the input to the student's level, providing a structured and supportive environment for language acquisition. So, while our first language or our L1 can be a helpful starting point through language acquisition comes from understanding the language we're exposed to. By prioritizing comprehensible input, we can make the journey of learning a new language more effective and enjoyable. That's all for our discussion for today, class, and we hope you learned something from it. And see you in our next video. Bye!